What's up, guys? We are back with another Marvel Legends review, and we're taking a look at the latest wave of X-Men figures. I got a full case from Sci-Fi Toys of the X-Men 97 wave, and I am completely astonished by the fact that we're getting figures for this so in advance. It does not seem real when it comes to Legends, but we're going to knock the whole wave out and just do them all in one shebang. So we've got Wolverine, we've got Bishop, we've got a Magneto, we've got a, what do we got? We've got a Storm, we've got a Gambit, and we got a Rogue. And these all come on the retro style card backs. So you got the figures there. In the bubble, we've got some very X-Men 97 branded, themed style of artwork. Very reminiscent of the original show, obviously. And in the back of the package, it gives you cross-sell for the full wave as well as a render for whatever figure you got. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package are X-Men 97 Marvel Legends. So again, these are based on the design, like the style guide for the upcoming X-Men 97 show, the continuation of the 90s X-Men show, which is crazy in just so many ways that the show even exists, it's happening, and that these came out before the show ever appeared, which the timing seems crazy to me. It doesn't happen all that often anymore, right? So we've got 6 figures in this first wave. I'm going to run through each one of these individually. Not really any order to this, although I may have picked the best one first. So we've got Bishop on deck, and this guy is pretty solid. Like if you need a Bishop, this is a good one to get. It's not necessarily going to replace the existing Marvel Legends Bishop, and that's kind of the thing. I don't know that any of these really are going to do that, except for maybe Wolverine, because he kind of works across the board. But this is definitely a different take on Bishop. You know, he's got different hairstyle, outfits slightly different, and then there is definitely something cartoony about these, specifically the faces across the board, which is a good thing. That's what this is supposed to be. So in many ways, I think they kind of nailed these. Some are better than others, and I think Bishop is probably a good example of the better half. So we've got a head that can look up a little bit, down slightly, tilt side to side. It's just on a ball peg here. Rotation. Arms out at the shoulders, a little bit better than 90 degrees. Of course, you can swivel. No butterfly joint on this guy. You've got a bicep swivel. We've got double jointed elbows, which go as far as you want. And then you got swivel and hinge at that wrist. We've got our classic ab crunch, goes back about that far, forward about that far, and then you've got a waist twist that sits underneath of that belt and is nicely hidden. Legs go out about that far. They only go that far because he's got these like pouches on the side of his legs. Otherwise, they'd probably go a little bit further. They kick forward all the way. Backwards slightly, you got your thigh twist. Double jointed knees, go back all the way. And then we've got our boot cut down here. You got rocker. And pretty good hinges down there as well. Of course, one of the big selling points for these figures is that they are pinless. So, you know, you've got pinless elbows and pinless knees on Bishop. So there is, no concern about any mismatched colors, although I don't think that would have been much of an issue for him to begin with. But it does present, a cleaner look. And that's really what it comes down to. I think pinless is a cleaner look. It's not necessarily about articulation and range for me. It's always just been about those unsightly pins. So I am happy that we have moved away from that, and that we continue to do that, and I think as a result, this figure looks pretty good. I'm really happy with the body size. He's big, he's beefy, he's not super huge, but he's not small. Everything pops. It's obviously a blue and yellow suit, so those colors very much contrast. We've got our classic X-Men blue and our bright yellow. Line work is really clean and crisp. I don't have any fuzziness, none of that stuff. The X logo on the belt, really clean. One weird little thing about this figure that, and it's weird in a good way, that I really like, is like the neckerchief around him. It fits so well. Like, it's obviously been designed to fit across this body. It's attached at the back of the neck, but it sits and it doesn't move. It doesn't get in the way of his articulation, and it adds a little pop of color, and it just stays where it's supposed to. I always hate stuff that moves around and flips and flops all over the place. So that's really nice. He has obviously a new head sculpt here, and this is definitely an updated head, an updated look, so he doesn't have, like a Jerry curl or long hair or anything like that. He's got short, kind of spiky hair, which works well. I mean, the colors look good. Face printing is nice, because of course, we are in the world of face printing for everything now. Eyes are really clean and crisp. The eyebrows, the beard, the goatee looks really good, and the M on his face, that branding, does also look really nice. Very clean. No issues to speak of. That's the thing about this figure. It's just It's everything that Marvel Legends, we're used to seeing. It's just done really well. I think he moves well. He looks really good. All the paint's clean. And this design, I think this design specifically has translated into a figure very, very nicely. So if you're into this look for Bishop and these characters, you're probably going to be happy. He does come with a handful of accessories, nothing too crazy. We've always got his ever-present weird, holster on his back, which I always thought was kind of cool. It is weird. And then he's got his gun. It's a new gun. Just gray, flat gray, no metallic, no swirly plastic. Looks good, fits in there really, really well. He can hold it just fine. He does come with 4 total hands. You've got a right fist, and you've got a slightly gripping left hand. It's not a trigger finger. It's meant to basically use the gun as like a two-handed pose. And then you get 2 trigger fingers, so you get a left and a right. But these are vertical hinges, where these are lateral. So he's got a decent amount of accessories. Nothing too crazy. It's Legend, so you're not going to get a million things. But I think overall he's got the basics that you need to round out a really, really solid figure. Next is Rogue, and we're kind of going like maybe the flip side to Bishop here a little bit. Bishop is really solid, probably one of the best figures in the wave. Rogue, for me, is down there towards the bottom. And it's mostly because there's not a whole lot that's exciting or truly different about this one. This figure is very similar to what we've already gotten. Now, I'll say that with a grain of salt because, of course, if you don't have any of those Rogues, like the one we got on the retro card back, or the one that was in, the Juggernaut wave, which was like 7 years ago or something like that now, those are not easy to get, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure the prices have gone up. The other Rogues that we've gotten are not this style. Outback Rogue is probably my favorite of the bunch. This one is serviceable, but there's some stuff about it that I'm just not all that jazzed about. So as far as articulation, she's pretty solid. She can look down really nice. She can look up a little bit. The hair in the jacket's going to get in the way. You got tilt, you got rotation. Arms go out at the shoulders like way far, really nice there. Swivel, all that good stuff. We've got single jointed elbows. So of course they're pinless by default. They give you better than 90 though, and I guess that's just because we don't have, double jointed jacketed arms like this for a female yet. We've got hinges, we've got rotation at those wrists, nothing crazy there. Torso is just our standard diaphragm ball here, so pretty normal. She's very normal for a Legends female. Tilt side to side, backwards, forward, swivel. Still nothing at the waist on this one though. Legs only go out about this far, so we're limited there. Kick forward decently, not really anything backwards. You've got your thigh twist, double jointed, pinless knees. So those are good, but they still don't have like the best range. It's okay. It's good enough. It's certainly serviceable. She does not have a boot cut though. And then you've got your rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. Mine are pretty tight. They're pretty normal female Marvel Legends ankles in the sense that the detents have always been kind of weird. So she's normal. She's fairly standard for a Marvel Legends female when it comes to how she moves. The big aspect of this one is just the look. It's very 90s Rogue. The paint is okay. In contrast again to Bishop, her line work is a little fuzzy, specifically on the thighs. Like that's just not great. The jacket looks good. The X emblem on the chest and on the sleeve looks good. That's fine. She does come with a hand that is gripping a glove. Of course, she comes packed in the box in a way that does not work because she's got 2 gloves on and is holding another. But you get some extra hands. You get a swappable fist. So when you take this one off, you've got the fist, and then you get the bare hand for her right to actually use that correctly in a way that it makes sense. So you've got those options. Where I kind of lose it on this one, though, because she's overall a decent figure. There's nothing crazy about this one, good or bad. Where I kind of lose it is the face. Because to me, this does not look like Rogue. This looks a lot like X-Men 97 Rogue, but in a way that makes her seem not Rogue-like, if that makes any sense. And now that I say it out loud, it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't really have much Rogue likeness there. It just does not look great. I think the photo printing on this one in particular is kind of rough, especially, going back to Bishop. Compared to him, it looks kind of rough. What I do like is the hair. It does get in the way of articulation a little bit, but it looks really good. It's 2 pieces, so it's not painted at all. The white is a separate piece, and the reddish brown is a separate piece. So where I really lose it is the face paint, and the fact that she's basically smiling, and that's a very Rogue thing, but at the same time, I think of Rogue more of, angry, a bruiser, so she's not maybe always going to be smiling, and I don't necessarily want her smiling on my shelf, but it's okay. Again, if you have those older Rogues, they're definitely still fine. maybe not worth the upgrade on this one or just changing one out. But if you're into this look for Rogue, because again, I do think this looks pretty close to the artwork on the box, maybe she's the one you want. I do feel like, however, she is probably, you know, towards the bottom of the barrel for this wave for me. Next up, Gambit, Remy, one of my favorite X-Men, so I've definitely been curious about this one. I wasn't so sure about this figure when I first saw these solicitations and those original pictures, but I've kind of grown on the way this looks. The head sculpt in particular is the big thing. I wasn't really sold on it. I think it looks pretty solid in person. He's not a fully pinless figure though, so that's kind of one of the drawbacks compared to some of the other figures. Like, he's still got old legs, assumedly because, you know, they don't have a reuse for his style of legs just yet or anything like that. So as far as moving him around, pretty standard stuff. You got a head that can look up really nice. He can look down really good. No tilt on this guy. You've got full rotation. Arms go out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate. You got your bicep swivel. Single jointed elbows, but they are better than 90, so that's good. You got your hinges. You got rotation there. We've, of course, got an old ab crunch here. He goes forward really good. He can't really go backwards. Of course, the jacket is the cause there. You got your classic waist twist, but it's one of those where, you know, it looks really janky if you angle it a certain way. Legs kick forward. They kick out about this far. The jacket is, of course, still going to get in the way. It's always going to get in the way on figures like this. A little bit backwards. You got your thigh twist. We've got double jointed knees, but, well, I mean, that's... Are you going to use it? And then you've got a boot cut down there, hidden pretty well in these lines. And then we've got really, really nice rocker and super, super tight hinges at these ankles. Like, they're really tight on my figure. Not necessarily in a bad way, they're just tight. So he moves, I mean, basically as well as you would expect. If you've messed with another Gambit figure, whichever wave he came in a few years back, and then that one that came on the retro card, you basically know what to expect here. What I've come to like about this figure, though, is the look. And like I said, I wasn't really sold on this one at first. And it's still very much just like every other Gambit figure. There's nothing too crazy about the way this one looks outside of the color scheme specifically, and then this head sculpt. And I really like these colors. It really comes down to this very pink on the torso that clashes with this metallic blue. I mean, this is Gambit through and through, so you know what to expect. And I really like it. I think that pink is really good. The accents on the legs look nice. You do still have, you've got the pins, so, you know, there's that one. That's the one thing. That's the thing that I want to get away from when it comes to pinless versus pinned figures. It's not necessarily functionality, it's looks. That doesn't look great. But the pink here looks good, the metallic blues look really good, and everything just works. Like, this still looks very classic Gambit while also being something a little bit new and different. A lot of that obviously is owed to this head sculpt, which, again, I wasn't really sold on at first. I wasn't so sure that this was Gambit, but the more I look at it, the more I'm happy with it. I think this is definitely a very animated look for Gambit, and, you know, I'm very curious to see where this goes in the show, but I think this looks good. The hair in particular has a nice windswept look to it. That's a really nice hair sculpt. He's got just enough of a smirk to very much come across as Remy, and then you've got, you know, his very telltale mask, or the face shield, whatever you want to call it. Got a little bit of stubble on there too. So a few little details that help me, I guess, enjoy this one a little bit more. And then as far as accessories goes, we've got stuff we've seen throughout the other releases. So he's got, you know, style posy hand on him in the package for the kinetic card, which I always love. I've really liked the Gambit accessories since we started getting him, you know, 15 different times. We've got a gripping hand, and then you've got the card throwing hand, which is easily one of my favorite Marvel Legends effects pieces ever. And then you've got his staff, which is done up in a similar, maybe not exactly the same color, but similar color to the metallic on his armor. And that's what the gripping hand is for. So he comes with pretty much everything you need. I really love both of these effect parts. I've got a handful of them at this point, but they're always welcome because they are some of the most useful effect parts that are tied very, very closely to obviously a very, very specific character. Now to the other female figure in this wave, we've got Storm, so we've got Rogue and we've got Storm. And Storm is very much in the same arena for me as Rogue, which is to say, unfortunately, she's towards the bottom of the barrel. Not necessarily because she's a bad figure, it's just that maybe she's not as exciting to me as the others. There's also one big thing that I absolutely hate about Storm figures at this point, and it's this cape. I'm just not a fan of this. It's so janky, and it just doesn't, I don't think it works right. It looks super, super cheap. I hate these little straps that connect to the wrist. Like, they're just so big. Not a fan of that cape at all. I much prefer what the one that came in that multi-pack that had like the rubbery cape, you know, the classic Storm. That was fine. Like that's a plastic cape that I'll deal with. This just is wonky. So we've got some articulation to talk about. Her head goes up, it goes down really good. You don't have any, well, you got a little bit of tilt. You got rotation, of course. Arms out at the shoulders. You got to watch your cape. You know, don't mess it up and get it twisted like I'm doing. Arms go out, they rotate. You still have to watch those arms, of course. You got about a 90-degree single jointed elbow. You've got swivel on it also. And then you've got hinges and rotation at your wrist. Normal stuff there. Single jointed, but I do like these shoulder pieces here. Got really, really good diaphragm cut. Too far back and you're going to get a wonky gap, but it goes way, way back. Pretty solidly forward. Really nice tilt as well. Legs go out. I mean, not full splits, but pretty close. Kick forward, backward a little bit. You got your thigh twist. Double jointed pinless knees. They have been super, super difficult to move on this figure though. There we go. So all the way back. Good stuff there. And then we got rocker, and the rockers on this figure are odd. They almost, either they're way too tight or they are ratcheted somehow because they are clicking every time I move them. Both feet are. And then you got hinges. It's kind of odd. They're moving kind of funny on this one. Similarly to how Rogue's did, but in a different way, I guess. So they're moving weird, but in a different way. So she moves okay. It's fine. Nothing to write home about, really. I think the big thing for this figure, for me, comes down to the head sculpt and the cape, because I think the figure looks fine. Like, this is definitely, you know, a 90s era style Storm figure. I like these pauldrons. They move a little bit to get out of the way. Paint on her looks really solid. It's not a ton, but the yellow looks good. The X emblems look good. I hate the cape. Again, I just don't like this cape. I'm not a fan of this structure, this system. It gets the idea of Storm's cape down really well, but the execution, like, this is just flimsy. Like, I feel like if I look at this wrong, I'm going to tear it or something like that. So I'm not a big fan of it. The head sculpt, though, I think is where this figure probably, you know, is going to be most exciting for people, because this is a really solid head sculpt. Paint looks good. Printing on the eyes looks good. I like her lightning bolt earrings. The hair, because we're back to a mohawk for Storm, and it's a big old nasty mohawk, and I absolutely love Mohawk era Storm, but this hair is tremendous. There's a big thing in this wave with really solid hair sculpts. Rogue is the same way. Gambit's the same way. Bishop has good hair. It's all about hair. And this is a wild hair sculpt. I'm going to talk about it too much probably, but it's really good. It's big. It's voluminous. It looks very punk for Storm, and I'm happy with that. I'm very happy that we're going back to that. What I don't like in conjunction with the cape, though, is the lack of accessories on this one, because, you know, she obviously has a specific power set. We've gotten the pieces before in other figures. She has no effect parts. You just get hands. So you get fists and you get the style posy hands. That's it. So nothing to write home about when it comes to accessories. So if you're like me, this figure's going to be pretty decent, but the big letdowns are the lack of accessories and just this functionally weird cape. Next up, the only villain in this wave, and the master of Magnet himself, the one and only Magneto. You kind of have to do him if you're going to do a bad guy, right? This one is easily one of the better figures in this wave for quite a few reasons. There are a couple annoyances that I have with him, but if you don't have a classic Magneto, you could easily get this, integrate it into your collection, and no one would be any the wiser. He still very much looks just like a comic figure. The face is maybe the only thing that's a little bit cartoony, but there's some things about this one that have been changed for the better. One big thing for me in particular. So let's see what he can do. See how he moves around. It's still standard Legend stuff. So his head goes up, it goes down. You've got a little bit of tilt. If you cock it the right way, you've got rotation, of course. Arms out at the shoulders, you got rotation. Bicep swivel, pinless double jointed elbows. Look great, move well. Hinge, swivel at the wrist. Ab crunch, he goes backwards, which, you know, that's weird. The cape makes it weird. Forward really, really far. Waist twist hidden by that belt. Legs go out about that far. Not the full splits, but good enough for an old man. Kick forward. Backward slightly. Thigh twist. Double jointed pinless knees. Again, look great, move well. No boot cut on Magneto, despite the fact that he has a boot and a line that could have been used right there. Really nice rocker. Hinges on this guy are good. They move well, but they're super tight, and the detents are kind of weird. So, watch it. I have had him fall over too many times trying to get him to stand up correctly. You got to find like the right spot, and then he'll stand just fine. But there are some oddities about those ankles for me. Where I think this guy truly excels, though, is the visuals. Because this still just looks like a classic Magneto. I don't really have any misgivings about this figure. He looks good. The musculature looks good. I like some of these new parts. He's still got some old parts too, but I like some of this new stuff. The one thing in particular about this figure that I love, because I really dislike a lot of Marvel Legends plastic capes, not necessarily because they're plastic, but how they sit on the figure. This thing is attached to the figure. So it's not one of those where it's going to flip and flop and bobble around. Like, this is not coming off unless you want it to come off. If you want to cut it off and then put a soft goods cape on, you can do that. You still have the hole in the back, but this actually works. Like, that's what it is. Capes on Legends a lot of times are functionally weird. This one seems to work really, really well. And one of my major gripes is just a non-issue on this figure. So I'm really happy with that. There are a couple little things about this one that I'm kind of nitpicky about. I don't know how I feel about this trunks situation right here with those new hip pieces. It looks odd to me. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know if I prefer the old or if I'm just sort of indifferent towards this. So that's kind of a weird thing. The only other really nitpicky thing on this figure, and it's just something that I can't not see now, there is the craziest seam lines on these legs. It starts here, it zigzags over the knee. There's a seam that goes all the way down the front of the figure, and it's just so obvious. I'm not sure it's going to get picked up on camera very well, but it is there, and it's annoying the hell out of me. Not the biggest deal, but it's something. And then we've got our head sculpt here, which I think is pretty solid. You don't get any extra heads. There's no angry head like we've gotten in the past, or any unhelmeted head. So you get a very classic looking Magneto helmet here. And this is not necessarily the same helmet that we've gotten in the past. The little accents are a little bit more subdued in some ways. The purple is a little bit less purple here. And then we've got a new face on the inside there, which I think looks really good. Again, this is the one area where I feel like it's definitely a little bit more cartoon leaning than anything else. But I don't know that there's going to be any issue integrating this kind of figure into a comic display, again, if you don't have that older figure. And then as far as accessories goes, this is where he kind of lets me down, because despite the fact that I know what effect part they would give us, it would either be the lightning bolt or the bubble effect, he doesn't get any. And this guy is especially in this show, this is the one character that really, really needs him. I mean, he does it all the time. All you get are some fists to go along with your style posy hands. So nothing too crazy, but if you do have some older effect parts, you can easily use them. I'm sure a lot of folks out there that collect Legends have a bin full of those bubble pieces. So not a huge thing, but it would have been a nice effect to have gotten along with him right out of the box. And last but not least, normally I would say that I'm saving the best for last, because Wolverine is, far and away my favorite Marvel character. Not even just X-Men, my favorite Marvel character. Always has been. I am that kind of Marvel fan. So we've got our new Wolverine, and dare I say that this is the best Wolverine that we've gotten from Hasbro. I don't know that he's my favorite in the wave just by virtue of how good I think some of the other figures are. I really like Bishop, and I don't know that it outweighs some of what this new Wolverine brings to the table, which sounds odd, but here we are. So we've got a pretty standard Wolverine. He's definitely not the same figure. This is new stuff, but he's still very much what you expect. So the head goes up, head goes down. No real tilt on this guy, but you do have rotation. Arms out at the shoulders. They only go about this far, though. Your shoulder pads will move. They're actually pinned into the upper arm, the shoulder there. Swivel. He's got his butterfly joint. You got your bicep swivel. We've got pinless double jointed elbows, but this is one of those instances where it's not as useful as some of the others, because he has such big biceps that they don't allow him to go all the way, but it's still really good range. Hinge, swivel at those wrists, normal stuff there. You got your ab crunch. He goes backwards about that far. He goes forwards really good. You need that for Wolverine. You got your waist twist. Legs out, almost full splits, that's really, really close. He kicks forward all the way. Backward pretty good. You got your thigh twist. Pinless, double jointed knees go back really far. And then you've got a boot cut hidden under that boot. Always good. And then you got rocker. And we've got hinges. And I don't have any real ankle problems like I do with some of the other figures. The detents on him feel really good. So I don't know. It's kind of weird how some of the figures are different. But he still moves very much like you expect any other Wolverine to move. If you've got the old tiger stripe body, or if you've got well, hell, just about any of them, because they're all built on basically the same framework until this one, you kind of know what to expect. What I really, really like about this one, though, is just like with Magneto, if you don't have one of those older Tiger Stripe figures, this is a perfect stand-in. There is nothing here that necessarily says, oh, that's from the cartoon. It is, but it's not. And we get some parts to go along with it. You know, like the extra head sculpt's going to be giving you the helmet or the hood and everything. And it all looks like it could have come out of the comic, because this is still a very quintessential comic look for Wolverine. The yellow is super bright. The blacks are really deep. No fuzzy lines on this. The belt looks good. That touch of red just helps to break him up. The new legs, I think, look really good. The musculature is nice. He still has his squatty proportions, so he's not super big. What is really, and the only thing I have that's really annoying me on this figure is, and it's a stupid nitpicky thing, are the arms. So the arms have that hair texture, but of course there is no paint in there, and that's not uncommon. But he has these really weird bare patches. So he has no texture on his bicep, but he has it on the side of his arm and the tricep. And then the actual back of the tricep has no hair. So he has been shaving in a very specific manner. It is again, it's a nitpicky thing, but like I saw it and I just focused on it and I can't stop looking at it now. Maybe he needs a pop of color in that hair sculpt to bring it out and just maybe divert your attention from the fact that he has these baby butt smooth biceps. But I don't know. Not a huge deal, but it's a weird thing. The head sculpt on this guy, though, I think looks tremendous. Really happy with it. This is easily the best Wolverine, well, Logan head sculpt that we have gotten from Hasbro. Bar none. I will hear no arguments on it. Hair looks great. The expression looks really good. He is curmudgeonly. He is not happy to be here, as is always the case with him. The claws are pretty good. These are not my favorite claws, but these very much go with the show. My favorite claws are always going to be the X-Force Wolverine claws, those the thick ones, which, you know, they tend to go with claws that look like the source material. Those claws go with that X-Force Wolverine. These claws do intend to go with this particular look for him. So it's okay. Just not my favorite. I would prefer to have the other versions, even if they didn't really make sense. He does come with some pretty solid accessories, though. I guess he comes with the bulk of the accessories for the Wave. It's still stuff that we've kind of seen before, though. So we do get some extra hands. You get just, you know, non-clawed hands. Does anybody ever use these? I have never once displayed a Wolverine figure without claws, except for, you know, using some claws, like flipping somebody off or something. And then we get an extra head. Well, we actually get the cowl first. So you get this, you get the hood, so you can pop the hood down, and then you can put this head back on and do one of those numbers. So that's cool. We've seen this before. And then this is our hooded head. And I think this is the same one that came with the VHS Wolverine, but this still very much looks, you know, like classic Tiger Stripe too. Those fins on the side of the hood, tremendous. They look great. They're very big. Look great. He's got a little bit of stubble. It's kind of haphazard though, not the best. But the paint details on him are really nice. I'm happy with this one. And it looks very classic Wolverine. This might be one of the few instances, though, where I think the unmasked head is cooler than the masked, which is very rare for me. But this is just a really, really solid head sculpt. Overall, though, this is just a very good Wolverine through and through. And again, if you don't have any of the older, you know, Tiger Stripe figures, there are a couple. This is an easy one to pick up and quickly integrate into your 90s X-Men display. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid wave, and there's a few major reasons why. One, I think this is a pretty cohesive wave. It's obviously very themed, and a lot of the figures do seem to go together in that regard. Some seem to be more animation-y than others. You know, Gambit, Bishop are definitely very heavy animation for this particular thing. So is Storm. Rogue is the odd one out because I just don't think she's all that exciting. I don't think there's any real major upgrades on that figure. Bishop, however, really nicely done. Storm is good. I really like that hair. Again, I like the hair in this whole thing. The Gambit is really nicely done. Magneto and Wolverine are probably going to be some standouts because if you don't have some of those figures, you can easily use those for comic figures and no one will be, you know, any the wiser. They very much still look comic-y. Wolverine is probably the best Wolverine figure we have gotten. I think he has the best Logan head sculpt we've ever seen out of Hasbro. And Magneto has some really good improvements through and through that just show that they have made some good movements forward when it comes to Legends, not to mention the fact that there is a whole lot of new pinless stuff here that I am a fan of. So that's going to do it for this look at the Marvel Legends X-Men 97. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.